Welcome to my show. I am a guest here. Her name is Ami Novotny. Ami, how you doing, ma?
I'm doing well, Tammy. Thank you for having me on today.
All right, thank you so much, ma. Firstly, I want to go to your background. You're a founder of PABA Institute. You also
Yes.
have background in orthopedics. You're a sports you have background in orthopedic sports, geriatrics, balance disorder, nerve injury, chronic pain, and you also
Mhm.
co-authored two Amazon number one best-selling book, which is
Mhm.
Don't Quit and Faith and Success. You also speak three languages. You speak English, Spanish, and French. Like, I would like to ask, what inspired you to go through all this journey? What was the motivation behind it, and how are you doing currently now, ma?
Sure. So, ever since I was little, I loved life. Just life in terms of animals, life in terms of plants, the environment. I loved other cultures. My dream as a little girl was always to travel and see the world. I grew up with my mom and one of my brothers, and we lived in a small apartment. We didn't do much other than go to the swimming pool, go to the library, and be at home. So I wasn't exposed to too much other than what I read in books and just heard from other people. And so I just always wanted to challenge myself in every way possible. So that led me to studying hard in school so I could get scholarships to go to college. And then when I was in college, I got the opportunity to study abroad in France. So I got scholarships to go and do that. And I was able to study there. And before going there, I worked hard as well. I worked a couple jobs so I could save up so then I could backpack all over Europe for a few months and see as many countries as possible. Practice some of my Spanish over in Spain, practice French in France, and just travel as much as possible. And then when I came back, I did a volunteer experience over in Australia and I worked in some nature preserves, so that way I could just help after some wildfires. So I got to get exposed there, and then I decided once I graduated college, I decided to go to graduate school and got a scholarship to go there. So the theme is I've worked hard all my life. I didn't sit in front of the TV. I always worked hard. I studied hard. So that way, because I didn't have the financial backing of my mom couldn't afford anything, so I had to find a way myself to make things happen. So I did that. And then that led me to getting a doctorate in physical therapy. I worked for a while in physical therapy before I branched off into studying more about the nervous system and learning how I could help people differently. And so now I help people by working to calm down the nervous system, to alleviate pain, stress, anxiety. And that actually helped me with another trip around the world. I was hired by a world famous photographer to help him for 6 months and train him to calm his nervous system down to avoid a couple surgeries. And so that led me going to the Arctic and all the way down to Antarctica. And I got to do some photography of some penguins and birds and animals all over the world just by helping him at the same time. And so that led me to develop the business I have now, where I help people all over the world through Zoom, just like you and I are talking. And I literally have clients all over the world where I help them calm down the nervous system to avoid surgeries, to help them with PTSD, different anxiety disorders. And that's where it's led me.
That's very impressive. I'm so glad for that. Hard work really pays. And that is why I want to expand it because something to catch my eye during when I was reading about your biography. I saw you said your mission is to provide pain, stress, and anxiety relief to those who seek a neutralistic form of treatment when other
Yes.
treatments method are falling short. Can you discuss
Mhm.
more about that, ma'am?
Sure, absolutely. So when we think about when someone has some type of pain, shoulder pain, head pain, neck pain, a lot of the treatments out there, at least in the United States, and I would say Canada and England, I'm not sure in all countries in the world, but a lot of treatments are geared towards let's give them a medication or let's do something external to the body. So physical therapy is typically let's massage or stretch them or do something strength-wise that's still external to the body. And so for me, I know a lot of problems that we have come from internal reasons. Maybe what we eat isn't correct. Maybe how much we sleep isn't correct. How we carry ourselves, how we hold our body, the stresses that we have in our relationships or in our daily life, that impacts the way our muscles work. And so there's a nervous system in our body called the autonomic nervous system. It runs our organs, it runs our endocrine system, our hormones, and we can have more of an influence on it than we realize. It's not just automatically going in the background. We can influence how it works. And so once I realized that we can change and calm ourselves down by changing our rib cage position, we can change the mechanics of how we breathe. And that in turn affects how that nervous system works. And that can cause muscles to release that are tight and that bind us up. Once we do that, we can change back pain, neck pain, any type of body pain that's related to orthopedics. And even some nerve pain we can change as well. And neuromuscular disorders, we can change that as well. And even pain related to stress and anxiety, we can change that as well when we learn how to change the sympathetic nervous system and calm it down. So, yeah,
All right, thank you so much, Ma. I really appreciate it.
sure.
I would like to ask, in terms of stress reduction, can you tell
Mhm.
us how breath works when it's, how it affects the nervous system in terms of stress
Sure.
reduction, Ma?
Right. So if we think about stress, let's just go through an example. Let's say you're working at a job and maybe you have an altercation with your boss. You have a fight with your boss and he or she tells you to do something you don't want to do and you're stressed about that. As soon as that happens, without your awareness, muscles start to tighten up in your body. They start to guard, and there's certain muscles that are more dominant in this process. So like the front of your chest, maybe your low back, the top of your shoulders, these muscles start to guard to protect you because your body doesn't recognize that that argument with your boss wasn't a true danger. You're stressed about it because it affects possibly your well-being and finances, but your body doesn't recognize that you're not in a physical danger. So your body starts to respond even though it's a mental and emotional stressor. When your body starts to respond, it starts to pull bones and joints out of position. That guards you and it starts to lock you up. So very easily, if your bones get pulled out of position, you can start to get some physical pain just because of the argument you had. And what happens is if you don't release that physical change, which most people don't do, that physical change, it can stay there. And if you go to sleep and your nervous system is still telling your muscles to behave that way, your muscles start to lock in and hold you in that new position. It affects your breathing mechanics. And so the stress starts to get out of control and your body starts to change without you realizing it. And then tell me you wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, I have back pain. I don't know where it came from. And it could be from some stress argument that you had with a boss a month ago that shows up in your back a month later because your body subtly changed over that month and you didn't realize it. And so this happens, and this is how people get into chronic pain. So when we talk about stress reduction, there's a lot of exterior things we can do for stress reduction, like meditation, or what I call meditation exterior because I mean you're working on the mind, but you're sitting in a position and you're not changing your physical body. But there's journaling, there's walking, there's a lot of different things that you can do. But what we want to really do is get the muscles to release the abnormal hold on the body. And to do that, you have to get the rib cage to drop down and in, the breastbone to go in as you exhale, because then the physical muscles release. And so internally, then your body starts to go back into a normalized position. and you release the abnormal hold on the joints and the pain goes away. And I say this is very, very critical. I just worked with a client, very successful. He also liked to lift weights and he built himself up. So he kind of held himself in that kind of military puffed up posture. And I've worked with him and I told him the importance of getting the breastbone to drop in and to release. And he's like, okay, yeah, I got it. I got it. I can feel it. And I could get him to feel it in certain positions laying on his back. But as soon as he sat up or stood up, he puffed himself back out. And so when I really emphasized about 2 weeks ago, I said, we got to get your breastbone to really relax down and in. That's critical when you're sitting, driving, walking. And he actually sent me a text and he said, I got it. I really got it. I felt my rib cage drop in and my breastbone go in, and I felt so relaxed. And he said, I can't believe all the other stresses in my day was just relieved because I got my body back in the position where it felt free again. And so when you talk to me about stress reduction, there's tons, if you can Google it, you can just Google tons of different ways for stress reduction. But the one thing that people don't know about is you have to get the physical body in a position to accept relaxation, to accept stress reduction. You have to start at your physical body and get it to internally let go because that sets the stage for everything else.
All right, ma. Thank you so much, ma. I want to
Sure.
go to the point of breathing control. Like, I want to ask, is it possible for someone to, because you are feeling a pain or something, is it possible for someone to control his or her breath in a long certain time, or is not just possible for someone to do something like that?
You can control how you breathe. You can have a huge influence on how you breathe. We subtly change how we breathe over life, over our years, but you can adjust how you do it again. So one of the biggest things that we are taught very young that is not always helpful for our body is we're taught as we exhale to suck our gut in and our tummy in as we exhale, and that actually reverses the breathing mechanics we were born with. As soon as you start to do that and you suck in as you exhale, that causes your body to lock up and it puts you in a heightened state of fight or flight. So, what I work on with people is let's reverse it back to the way you were as a child or a baby. So, when you exhale, the belly comes out. That allows the rib cage to drop down. So, when you inhale, then the air goes into more of the lung space than it did before.
All right, ma. Thank you so much, ma.
Yeah,
I would like to go
sure.
to the point of breath work. How do you think, generally, how do you think it's influence body stress when someone is breathing? How do you think it's totally influenced the way someone should be stressed or the way someone should not be stressed, ma?
Sure. So, when you experience some type of stress trigger, your breathing mechanics change automatically without you realizing it. The breastbone in front, the sternum, the breastbone, goes up and out. So as soon as you feel stress, that lifts up and so does your rib cage. When that happens and your rib cage and your breastbone lift up, your diaphragm, the muscle that's supposed to be used for breathing, becomes less dominant. Now your rib cage becomes a more active player in how you breathe. And as soon as the ribs start to lift up and out when you breathe, your diaphragm is less supported. So the nerve that helps calm you down doesn't get stimulated the way it should. And so because your breathing pattern now lifts up to breathe, your back muscles also start to work and compress on the fight or flight nervous system to ramp you up even more. So you get in this cycle of a stress trigger changes your breathing mechanics make you more stressed, and you just get into this cycle where you're just getting more and more ramped up. Eventually, some people hyperventilate if it's a super stressful event. So, but we can reverse that. And it's hard and it takes a lot of work where we get the rib cage back down. to get the diaphragm to have support. So then you pull air in like a vacuum using the diaphragm, and it doesn't feel like you're lifting to get air, because so many people, when they breathe, they feel like they're lifting up. We don't want to do that. We want the air to flow in and down, and you don't feel like this need to lift up to grasp for air all the time. And when you shift how you do that, you can feel this very soothing sensation. And a lot of people are on the right track when they talk about grounding and feeling the surface of the chair, the surface of the ground, because they're trying to pull you back down. But the one piece that's often missing is you have to get the breathing mechanics to go along with that so that you're not lifting up and pulling yourself off the ground or chair all the time. So,
All right, ma. Thank you so much, ma. I want to go to the
sure.
point of breathe. Do you think breathe plays a role in lesser anxiety, more focus, more fluent thinking, things like that? Do you think breathing properly plays a role in things like that, ma?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
So if we go back to what I was talking about with the rib cage lifting up when you're stressed. So if the rib cage lifts up when you're stressed, the back of your body, the back muscles start to work more, and they compress on the fight or flight nervous system that puts you in a hyper aware state. As soon as you go into that state, your ability to be creative, imaginative, to focus on something and produce goes away. It's super hard for the brain to focus on these other skills because it needs to focus on the danger that your body thinks you're in. So, as much as possible, if you want to be creative and you want to be on top of your game and produce your best work, we want to get your back muscles to relax so that the fight or flight nervous system is not being physically compressed, which allows your brain to calm down and focus on things other than save me, I'm in danger. It's hard process, but it's very rewarding when we can get the rib cage back down so that you're using your diaphragm so that you're calm and so your back's not overworking and you can be productive in using your brain. Like right now, as I'm talking to you, I need to use my brain to explain and, go through what I'm talking about. So I need to be in as much of a calm state as possible. So I make sure my rib cage is down. I'm doing what I need to do right now in order to be able to focus to speak to you.
Yes, ma. And I would like to also ask, you are saying that the stress must calm down, everything. Like, how long does it take? Is it instantly when someone is taking all this action? Is it instantly those pain we reduce, or there's some duration when you start to notice that these things are already reducing, ma?
Great question. So depends on the person. So someone like the client I was describing earlier, how he's kind of all puffed out all the time, it took him a while in order to feel like he could really control and get himself to release. But now, after he's learned these skills, because it does take time, there's a process to learning this. Now he can do it in a second. He can, and he told me this yesterday because we met yesterday on Zoom. And he said, I can now go lift weights, puff up my chest, then sit, and within 30 seconds, I can get it all to release. He's like, it feels so good. But he's had to put in weeks of work to get to that point. Now, someone else might be completely different. I might start working with you, Temmie, and because you don't have his same background, you might have other stressors, but maybe you're very receptive to me changing how your body is held. And you might get it in a week. You might get it in an hour. I do expect someone to have a change within the hour that I work with them. It may not be 100% perfect, but I expect you to feel a change. That's the key. And the work you do outside of meeting with me, that's where you learn to hold that skill, to keep that skill, and it just keeps snowballing and you get better and better and faster and faster and faster.
All right, ma. Thank you so much, ma. When it comes to
Yeah,
stress management, when it comes to breathing, do you have any advice you would like to give the general audience, ma?
sure. So one of the things I tell people to start experimenting with is when you sit in a chair, sit all the way back in the chair, let your back relax. And then as you exhale, exhale through your mouth and let your belly button spill out. Just start playing with that, which is hard. And I know you're smiling because you know how hard that is because we're used to sucking that belly button in. But just start playing with that alone. That's hard to accomplish. But once you get that brain to switch and you blow out and you feel the belly button spill out, you'll think back to this conversation like, oh, okay, I get where she's going with that. But that will at least get you going because then you'll start to feel the muscles in your body start to relax.
All right, man. Thank you so much, man. There's a question I normally ask from the ancestors,
Sure.
from the forefathers. If there is anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing would be, man?
So part of what I would love is the sense of community and helping each other. And how did people support each other back in our ancestry that we don't see today? And many of the tools and the ways that they helped each other medically, emotionally, mentally, I would like that as part of our world today. At least here in the United States, it's things are so broken up. You don't have family living with each other, and the support isn't there. Things are very isolated, and I hear all the time, I have no family support. I can't rely on anyone because there's this mentality of I have to win, I have to win, I have to win. And you're constantly pushing, pushing, pushing to get further ahead in life. But the thing is, the moment you die, all that matters is who's at your bedside. All the other stuff doesn't really matter. And I think we've lost that our ancestors could easily bring back to us. And I try to live that way. I have a little 14-month-old boy, and I spend as much time as I can with him. And I work very concentrated hours. I work hard, very concentrated hours, and I work 3 days a week. I will be volunteering to help him whenever I can. And I value what previous generations have focused on in terms of family and community, and I want to make sure that I embody those values too.
All right, man. You seem so cool and calm. It's like that breathing is working. So I will practice some of it so that I can be more calmer. Thank you so much for
Good.
your time. I really appreciate you, Mrs. Ami. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet you, Temmie.
Bye bye.
Bye.